Hi guys, I'm Shmi, and today you join me in the Ferrari 812 Superfast. It's the press launch, so the first opportunity to drive this car, and I'm the lucky one who's basically had all day driving it, and I can tell you, this thing is an epic Super GT. So I've done a full video giving you sort of my impressions, my feedback, driving it, taking it through town, in the countryside, even driving it on the legendary Ferrari test circuit, which has been the most amazing day. But now we're on our way back, and I've been thinking a little bit more about it, and well, the name 812 comes from the fact that this car has 800 horsepower. The 12 comes from the 6.5 litre naturally aspirated V12 that you find up front. So it's a mid-front engine. It's the most powerful series production car in existence ever. For a series production car, 800. So let's think about this. The F12 Berlinetta that came before this had 740. That was a huge number. My Ferrari FF that is currently in front of me, that we've been using as a sort of camera tracking car, has 661. So this car has 139 horsepower more than an already ridiculously fast Ferrari. And the FF is quick, don't get me wrong. But this thing, when you do this, goodness me, it just goes up to 8,900 RPM. The rev limiter, like you wouldn't believe, it hauls. But that poses this question: is it too much? Can that be a thing? And it comes down, I think, to circumstances, to what it's like, because the F12 TDF had 780 horsepower. That was the limited special series version of the regular F12, the predecessor to this. The 812 Superfast has come out as the successor, Ferrari's new sort of premium Super GT flagship traditional front engine V12 car, and it's such an amazing epic format for driving. But this car, it's surprisingly usable. That amount of horsepower, it doesn't seem to want to kill you, whereas all the reports about the TDF say completely the opposite. Say that if you drive it hard, unless you absolutely know what you're doing, the thing is going to bite you and it's going to hurt. So 800 horsepower somehow seems possible to actually lay down on the tarmac, and that obviously comes from the tyres. This car has pretty fat front tyres, 275 at the front, 315 at the rear, so a lot of contact with the ground, which obviously gives you as much grip as possible, and the wider front tyres make it fun. Those are what introduce sort of some more character to the car. So one thing that's relevant is, even if you have 800 horsepower and 718 newton meters of torque, you don't necessarily have to use it. You don't have to be going Mach 10 all the time, because it has so much torque so early in the rev range that whatever gear you're in, fourth gear, you just put your foot down and it starts pulling away with ease. And those downshifts, that noise, by the way, just needs as many mentions as I can possibly give it, because it is the most amazing sound you can ever imagine as we get an opportunity to accelerate again, which is just, goodness me, feels sort of almost to the top end, like it might be limited in first gear, a little bit lower in the rev range, which would kind of make sense with this sheer quantity of power that's coming through the car. But we all know, you know, Supercars 10 years ago had half this power. Hypercars 20 years ago had half this power. The game is moving on and developing so fast in terms of literally the horsepower and performance race and the top speeds. Maybe top speeds aren't increasing so much, because in this car, for example, the ratios are brought down about 6%, which gives you a bit more playfulness from it, because you can use more of the gears, you can use more of the revs, and makes it a little bit more exciting to drive. But it's a question, isn't it? It's a really interesting question. Personally, for me, a car for the public road, so we'll split this into two chapters, the public road and the racetrack. On the public road, where it's quite enjoyable to get to the red line, even in third gear maybe, but second gear for sure, you want to be able to rev out the car and make the most of it, and for that, about 400 horsepower is about where laws sort of allow us to get to. If you have more than that, regardless of the weight of the car, pretty much, you're going to be in silly territory, way too quick to kind of enjoy the drive. Now, the sort of flip side of that is, if you have more power, obviously you don't have to be using it all. The car sort of has more effortless capability to drive to the same level. This, for example, would outclass my Focus RS, barely going over 3,000 RPM, I'm sure. But that isn't necessarily fun unless the car is engineered in a way like this, and the powertrain and gearbox interact together to give you fun and to give you enjoyment without doing something stupid. This, for example, is within speed limits. This is completely, you know, in third gear, in fourth gear, you can use some of the power, and we're well within what we're legally allowed to be doing. He says, trying to go down to first gear, there we go. but the downshift noise is just silly, crazy. So I think this is a topic that depends massively what you're going to do. If you're in Germany on the Autobahn, you want to put your foot down and take this to its top speed of 211 miles an hour, hey, why not? So you can put your foot down and you can get some character from the car without having to get to the top end, although it rewards you when you get there. Now, driving it at Fiorano was where I was able to sort of cling on. I was about to say sit back, but literally cling on, put my foot down the straights and be like, oh my goodness, what on earth is this? Because it is crazy fast and it feels crazy fast. Obviously the layout with the engine at the front, the rear wheel drive, means that when you put your foot down, it sort of lifts up and carries you forwards in a completely different way to a car with the engine behind you, a mid-rear car. Except in here, somehow, it seems to drive in a very reassuring manner, in a way that feels like the engine is behind you, which I'm not quite sure how they've done that, how they've magicked that, how they've made it possible, but they have. It makes it spectacularly exciting to drive. So kind of going back to my question, I think it depends so much on the specifics of the setup, the specific characteristics of that car, how it works, where you are, what the circumstances are. And normally I would say 400, 450, that would be my limit. You know, Vantage GT8, Cayman GT4, Focus RS, for me, my cars that I've owned that have been within that sort of number, within that sort of, I think, safe region of being able to use the power. The supercars need to be treated to special occasions, taken out on this kind of day to Fiorano, or other track days, or to autobahns, where you can properly get the most out of them. But part of it comes from knowing what the car is capable of. So knowing a car has that performance, like, gives you a little buzz, I think, even if you don't necessarily use it. For the once or twice you do, for the once or twice you can get away with it. Obviously right now, sitting in the traffic back towards Fiorano, we are not getting much capability out of this. However, this is where, to be honest, I should have done already. I should put it back into sport mode, put it on bumpy road, so the suspension's a bit softer, and just let the car do its thing. And this does that brilliantly. I think it's just the numbers game allows us to get sidetracked. It's maybe a game of top trumps, you know, very few people drive these cars to the limit of what they're capable of. Just knowing that it's capable of that is sometimes sort of quite a reason for purchase, you know, knowing the brand, what they can achieve. And I think a lot of people that buy this car, and a lot of people who buy Ferrari V12s, do so for the performance offerings of the cars, for the sound they make, for what they're capable of, for how quick they are, for how dynamic they are, for their handling, for their suspension, for the way they're set up. And the suspension is brilliant. The way you press bumpy mode to soften it, rather than having all sorts of other buttons, or however different cars do it, or just having one toggle, or having crazy things. It's so easy, it's so simple, it's so marvellous. It just works brilliantly. So I haven't actually given an answer to the question. I think my answer to the question is no. It's a thing that if you know a car is capable of ludicrous speeds, it must be a bad thing quite often to the general public. To us car people, myself and presumably most of you guys who are watching me and subscribe to my channel, obviously we know that there's a time and place and environment to drive these cars and take them out and enjoy them on circuits or on roads where there's nobody else around, within limits, of course. So the answer for me is no, the answer for many people is yes, but I just want to take us a little bit longer to think about this a tiny bit more, because this car is incredible. This car is such an exceptionally cool machine. It is just amazingly baller. I've used that word once or twice before, apologies, it's not entirely like a technical journalistic word, but it's super cool. You just feel amazing driving it. The bonnet's huge, but the way you can see the sort of vents or ducts, so the air comes back out through like as it travels around, the aerodynamics of the thing. Maybe not the biggest visibility through the rear window, but just the whole thing feels cool, especially here in Ferrari heartland. You know, I'm driving this around the Modena region near Maranello, where, I mean, this is everybody's pride and joy in this area. Everybody knows a Ferrari, and this one in Giallo Tristrato is a spectacular colour. It looks amazing. It goes pretty nicely with the Le Mans Blue FF, to be honest. I think the two colours together are really cool. But there we go. It just turns so nicely, even with the suspension softer. They changed some things on the steering wheel, and then out of the roundabout we are, gives us an opportunity to play again. And just listen to that. The shift noise, building the rev slowly. It's a tease, isn't it? It's like, Oh my goodness, guys, this car is just incredible. Just, it's a savage animal from another planet. I don't even know how. It's the excitement of the TDF. They wanted to bring the fun of the TDF along with the comfort of the F12 into this, and it feels like they've done it. It's just amazing. Anyway, I think I've probably rambled enough. I just wanted to talk a little bit while driving it, wrap my thoughts up, remind you guys, go check out the main video if you haven't already. There's a lot of information about everything to do with this car, and there is an awful lot to it. Showing you the engine, showing you all around the interior, and driving it on the limit. Well, a little bit harder on the limit, and with Ferrari's test driver driving me in the passenger seat on the limit, which was pretty awesome on Ferrari. My first ever experience. So I will leave you there. Thank you very much as always for watching. I really appreciate it. Do check out the other Fuel for Thought videos if you're interested in knowing some other things about what to do to maybe one day have a supercar in your life, or what it's like looking after supercars and maintaining a fleet from my perspective as a person running a couple of them. Anyway, I'm going to leave this one for there. Let's have some gratuitous revs to wrap it up. Both paddles into neutral. Oh yes! What a noise. Thanks again, guys. I'll see you soon. Cheers.